We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Aleph Amud Beis in Meseches Bava Metzia. This is Bava Metzia Daf 51b. On the previous Amud, the Gemara had a machlokus between Rav and Shmuel. Let's say there's a transaction, and the person says that it's on condition that there is no onah. So Rav said that condition does not work. There still is going to be a claim of onah. Shmuel says the condition does work, and there is no claim of onah. And so the Gemara suggested that Rav, who says the condition does not work, maybe he follows Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir also says the condition does not work when it comes to kedushin. Let's say the man makes a condition with the woman that he's not going to provide sher ksus v'onah. So Rav, who says the condition does not work by onah, will follow Rabbi Meir, who says the condition does not work by kedushin. And the Gemara says not necessarily. Rav can say to you that that Rav Yehuda would agree with my position by onah because aval hacha, because over here, in contrast to the case by kedushin, miyada demachel, it's not known clearly that there is onah. He's just saying he wants to make a condition that you have no claim of onah against me, but the person doesn't really know whether there's onah or not, and so he can't really be mochel. Rashi says miyada de'ika onah. Does he really know there's onah? Who savar de'ein bo onah? He thinks there is no onah anyways, and so maybe that's why over here the condition does not work. And the Gemara continues along similar lines. Shmuel Amar, and Shmuel will say, I can follow even Rabbi Meir. Even though Rabbi Meir said over there by Kiddushin that the condition does not work, but Rabbi Meir would agree by Onah that the condition does work. Adkan lo ka'amar Rabbi Meir hasam. Rabbi Meir only said over there that the condition does not work. Ela devadai ka'akar, because the person is certainly uprooting something from the Torah. He is certainly saying there's no sher ksus v'onah. Aval hacha, but over here, miyemar de ka'akar. Who says that he really is uprooting what's in the Torah? It's not clear that there's onah here or not. And that's why the condition does in fact work in this case. And Rashi explains, meaning at the moment of the condition, it is clear, oker divrei Torah, that the person is trying to uproot the words of the Torah. Sheitila all of sher ksus v'onah. The Torah says that there is an obligation of sher ksus v'onah. V'zeh oker hachov ha'me'olav. This person is uprooting the obligation from himself. V'afilu hu nosein la'achar zman matana bi'almo. Even if he gives these to the woman after some time, but he's just giving a gift, he really did take away the obligation, or he's trying to take away the obligation. Aval hacha, but over here by onah miyemar da'akar. Who says that he's really uprooting anything? Shema lo yehe ba'onah. Maybe within this transaction there won't be onah, and so that's why again there can be a distinction. That's why Shmuel is arguing that Rabbi Meir would agree in this situation the condition does work. And the Gemara continues, Amar Ravanon says, L'didi mefarshali minei demar Shmuel. To me, it was explained to me by Shmuel what exactly he is saying, and Shmuel makes the following distinction. Ha'omer l'chaveru al manas she'ein loch alai onah. If a person says to his friend, on condition that you don't have any claim of onah against me, so that condition works. Ein lo alav onah, there he has no claim of onah. However, al manas she'ein bo onah, but if he says it, he phrases it on the condition that there is no onah, so then hareyesh bo onah, but if there actually is onah, so what he's essentially saying is a lie, and that condition would not work. And Rashi explains, Ein lo alav onah. Again, if he says that it's on the condition you don't have a claim of onah against me, so then that condition works. As Rashi says, Kiddafarishis, like we just explained, the miyemar dakar, who says that he's uprooting anything, we don't even know whether there is onah or not. However, if he says she'ein bo onah, that there is no onah in this transaction, imamar lo b'lashon zef, he says it in this language, Ein ze lashon mechilas onah. That's not saying that you should forgive the onah. El lashon tvias onah. It's saying there's no claim of onah. The almanas she'ein bo onah. He's saying that it's a condition that there is no onah, but there is onah here. Umekach tos nami. It's actually a mekach tos. If the person wants to retract, he can completely retract on this transaction. And the Gemara continues, Meisvei, we have a question from the following Braisa, Hanosei v'hanosin ba'amon. If somebody is doing business on faith, this is essentially, as we'll see, that you provide things on consignment. We'll see Rashi in a moment. Or if somebody says to his friend that there's a transaction on condition that you don't have any claim of onah against me, so ein lo olav onah. So in that situation, there is no claim of onah. And so here it seems that the condition is effective. It's a question on Rav. And so the Gemara asks, L'Rav do'amar anod di'amri afilu l'Rabbi Yehuda. According to Rav, who says that I hold even like Rabbi Yehuda, meaning all Tanoim agree with me that the condition is not good, so how many? So who's the author of this Brisa? This Brisa seems to say that the condition is good. And the Gemara answers, Amar Abai, Abai says, Machvarta Rav Amar Rabbi Meir, Ushmuel Damar Rabbi Yehuda. You have to go back to saying that Rav follows Rabbi Meir and Shmuel follows Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore again Rav will simply say this Brisa is following Rabbi Yehuda, and that's why the condition is good. Rava Amar Rava says, Lokash, it's not difficult. Kan bestam, kan b'mefarish. It depends if the person is just doing the transaction stam, he's not specifying anything. And in another case, we're talking about where he's mefarish, where he actually specifies, he makes it clear that actually there is onah, and he doesn't want any claim of onah against him. As the Gemara now explains, the Tanya, as we learned in a Brisa, b'amed devarim amurim, when is this true? Bestam, that's if the transaction is just made made and there's nothing specified. Avol b'mefarish, but let's say you have a situation where it's explained. Mocher she'amar l'lokeach, the seller actually says to the buyer, Chayfet zeh shani mocher lach b'masayim, this object that I'm selling to you for 200, Yodea ani bo she'eno shav el amona, I know that it's only worth 100. Al minas she'en lach alai ona, on the condition that you have no claim of ona against me, ein lo alav ona, so then there is no claim of ona, and Rav essentially would be saying that's what this brisa is talking about, that's why the condition is good, and there even Rav would admit that if the person is mefarish already, then already the condition is good. V'chein lokeach, and similarly by a buyer, shamar lamocher, if he says to the seller, chayfet zeh shani lokeach mimcha, this object that I'm buying from you, b'mana for 100, yodeani bo sheshav masayim, I know it's worth 200, al manas she'en lach alai ona, and it's on condition that you don't have any claim of exploitation against me, ein lo alav ona, so in this case again, there is no ona. And Rashi explains, again, the Brisa said, Hanose v'nosin ba'amona, somebody does business on faith. As we said, this is a kind of a consignment, as Rashi now explains. Mocher b'meshetuchal, the person says, I'm giving you this item, and sell it for whatever you can sell it for. V'tein li hamos, then after you sell it, you're going to give me the money, l'zman ploni, after some time. V'hineni somech alech, and I'm relying on you in terms of you selling it. V'nosin lo schar tircho, and the person says, I'm going to pay you for your efforts to sell this item. Kidel kamon, as we say later on. Ein lo alav ona, so there is no claim of ona. Again, the Brisa went on to say, if somebody says to his friend, on the condition there's no claim of ona, so that condition is good. And Rashi connects this to the case of nosei v'nosin ba'amona, means to say as follows, lomar yoser hayashave, meaning he can't claim, let's say he gave these items to the person who's going to sell it, he can't say, oh, you sold it for too little, it was really worth more. V'imachar ze b'damim ramor, let's say it's the other way around. Let's say the person sells it for a lot of money, ein ze yachal lomar lo etein el adamav, he can't say, well, I'm only going to give you what it's really worth. No, the deal is, whatever he sells it for, that's what he has to give. In any case, you see that the condition over here works. There is no claim of ona, and that was a question on Rav. And so the Gemara first answered with Abaya's answer that machvarta, you have to say that the machlokus, Rav and Shmuel, is the same machlokus, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. For Rav mukilok, Rabbi Yehuda and Rav will simply say this brisa follows Rabbi Yehuda. And then Rabbi Yehuda would say, even in a situation like this, Rabbi Yehuda would say that the condition is effective, meaning to say, even if at the time of the condition you don't really know whether there is ona or not, the person is able to be mochel and the condition is effective. But then the Gemara gave another answer and said that there's a difference between stam and mefarish. And when Rav says that the condition is not good, that's by a stam situation, meaning al manas she'en lach alai ona de lo yada denechel, meaning he says on condition there's no claim of ona, but the person doesn't really know whether there's actually ona or not, so he's not able to be mochel. That's why Rav says in general the condition is not good. However, by mefarish, if he would explain and state explicitly that there is ona, then the condition actually would be good. And if he's saying that there is ona, but you have no claim against me of ona, the condition would be good and he'd have no claim. Shapiresh lo yodeani sheyeshana. He says to him, I know there's ona. Vani mocher lach al manas she'en lach alai ona, and I'm selling it to you on that condition that there is no claim of ona. Devaha amar Rabbi Yehuda demasna. In that case, Rabbi Yehuda would say you make that condition to no kaim, and the condition would be good. The dami l'sher ksus. That's already similar to the case of sher ksus, where it's clear, and there the condition is effective. And the Gemara then went on to support this from the Brisa. When is it true that there's a claim of ona? Again, b'stam mecher, that's just by a normal sale. But if it's explained, if it's clearly stated that there is ona in the price that we're discussing, kagon mocher v'chula, for example, in the case where the person sells it and he actually says, I am specifically overcharging you and you have no claim against me, there the condition is effective. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Hanose v'hanosin ba'amon, if somebody does these business dealings in faith, again, this situation over here where the person gives the items to someone to sell for him, and then he normally would pay him for the efforts that he took to sell the item. So it says over here, Hareza lo yechashav es haraba amona ves hayafa b'shava. He can't say that the bad item that you're going to sell on faith, but the good item that you're going to sell for its actual value. Ella rather, ozev ezeb amona, either both are sold with faith, ozev ezeb b'shavar, both are sold at value. And Rashi explains, Hanose v'nosin ba'amona, somebody's conducting the business on faith, Kedefarishas, as was explained, Hareza lo yachshav lo es hara ba'amona ves hayafa b'shava. He shouldn't count the bad items on faith and then the good items at value. Lios lo hamtanas mos hayafa b'schar tircho. That essentially the loan given for the good items, that's going to be the payment for his efforts. That you should not do, as Rashi now explains. Kigon hayalo shnei yenos. Let's say the person has two kinds of wine. Yafa, he has a nice kind of wine. Sheyesh lo olav kofsim l'lacho v'vasachas. There it's easy to find people who will buy it. V'hora, and then he has also a bad wine. She'eno nimkar ela b'chanos. It's only going to get sold in the store. So lo yomar lo, so the person with the wine who's now giving it over to the seller, he shouldn't say to him, harei loch yafa b'shavyav. So the good wine I'm going to give you at value. What that essentially means is he's giving it to him on consignment at value. He's saying, you take the wine, you don't have to pay me this, you don't have to pay for this wine now. Go ahead and sell the wine. Whatever you sell it for, let's say you sell it for more than the value, you're going to keep that as a profit, and then you'll pay me back. So essentially over there, he's extending to him a loan. He's saying, you're going to pay for this wine, the proper value for the wine, but you don't need to pay it right now. You'll pay it after you sell the wine, so that's a loan. And he says, I'm going to give you that loan, on the condition that you're also going to sell the inferior wine in the store, as best you can, and then you'll give me all the money you get for the bad one. And then when you sell it, you'll give me the money of both of them. Again, you'll give me the value of the good one, and you'll give me whatever you sold for the bad one. And in that way, by extending this loan, what's he really doing? He's lending him money and saying, now I'm not going to pay you for your efforts in selling the bad one. I'm not going to give you any money for that. Instead, your payment is really this loan. And what he's essentially doing is he's saying that by extending to you this loan, I'm exempting myself. He's exempting himself from paying. He's exempting himself from paying for the wages for the efforts on the bad one. And that's essentially like ribbis. He's basically saying, I'll give you this loan if you do this effort for me. I'm not going to pay you for the effort. It's actually the loan. You're doing this extra effort because of the loan. You're going to pay me back the loan plus the effort. That's a problem of ribbis. That's essentially what it's saying. And then the Brisa said, rather, ela ozev v'zeh ba'amona, rather it has to be either both of them are ba'amona, meaning, v'yitin lo, kederach hanosid ba'amona, like anyone who sells on faith. When you sell on faith, in that situation, what you're basically saying, whatever you sell it for, you're going to give me that money, even if you sell it for a very high amount, and then I'll just pay you for your efforts. Sheschar kotzav hayo lehem k'dem efarsh l'kamon. There was a set fee that they got, as we'll explain, arba l'meya, 4 for 100, ozev v'zeh b'shava. Or the other option is you do it like a real consignment. You go ahead and sell it. I'm going to extend you a loan, and after you sell it, you'll pay me the value, and if you make a profit because you sold it for more, then the profit will be for the person who received it. And the Brisa continues, he also has to pay him whatever the cost is for carrying the items for the porter, and whatever the cost is for any camel drivers, and whatever the cost is for any inns. Rashi explains, means as follows, going on the case where he gives them the items on faith, and again, whatever he sells it for, that money is going to go to the person who gave him the items. So now, now when it comes to do the calculation, and let's say he gives him all the money for these items that he sold, but it also cost him money to sell the items, and so therefore he has to be compensated, so he can deduct, he doesn't have to give all the money he received for the items, he can deduct schar kasef, that's the wages for the porter, that's the person who carried it from the house to the store, let's say he needed camels, nosin lo schar gomel, he has to give him payment for that as well. All of those you can take into account. However, the Brisa says that's all true with all of those various costs, but schar atzmo, but in terms of paying him the fee just for his efforts of selling the items, eino notel, that he doesn't collect, shekvar nosan lo schar misholam, because he already actually gave him those wages. The Gemara clarifies, schar misholam mehecha kayavle, when did he give him those wages? Amar Papa says, b'tzadruye, we're talking about simple linen garments, to yahavi arba lameya. The way they would do it is, for every 100 garments, they would give an additional 4, and that was the payment. And Rashi says, b'tzadruye mochre bigdei canvas, again, these people selling these garments, sheschar kotzav lahem, it was a set fee, litein arba lameya, to give 4 for every 100, lemisha torach b'mechirasan, for the person who took the effort to sell them. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Kamatei asela chasera, how much can the sela be eroded, v'lo yehei ba'ona, and it's not considered to be ona, meaning to say that it hasn't lost so much value to be considered to be ona. Rabbi Meir says, Arba isaros, it's 4 isser ladiner, it's 1 isser for every dinner. For Rabbi Yehuda says, Arba pundionos, it's 4 pundion ladiner, 1 pundion for every dinner. For Rabbi Shimon says, and Rashi explains, Kamatei asela chasera, matbeah hayotze v'tamanu shochik v'chaser. You're talking about a coin, it's always being spent, and therefore it's eroding, it's losing some of its material, it's losing its value. Kama techsar v'im hotzia lo te'ona. How much can it lose? And if you use that coin, it's not considered ona, because technically you're not giving the full sela because it is eroded. How much is not yet considered ona? And so again, the first opinion is dalad isarin l'sela. It's 4 iser per sela, which is iser l'dinar, which is 1 iser per dinar. Vu echad michaf dalad bo. It works out to be 1/24 of a sela. Devav ma kesef dinar, because you have 6 ma kesef is a dinar, ma shnei pundiyonim, and 1 ma is 2 pundiyon, and pundiyon shnei isarin, and 1 pundiyon is 2 isarin. And so it works out that the 6 ma per sela times 2 pundiyon per ma'a times 2 iser per pundiyon, it's going to work out to be 24 iser in every sela. Uva Gemara mefarish, now the Gemara will explain, ma'ishna degabe shar schora amrinan shasus. Why is it that by all situations of business transactions, we go by a sixth? V'kan yeshom ramkach, v'yeshom ramkach, and here some say this amount, some say that amount. And then the second opinion in the Mishnah was arba pundiyonim, it's 4 pundiyon per sela, which is echad mishnei maser, which is 1/12 of the sela, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Nun Beis Amud Aleph.